Hello, everybody, and hello, Michelle. Hello, Dennis. I'm very happy that can join us today. And actually, this is a Trust Stories channel, and in this channel, we are talking about trust. First of all, this is a trust channel, and today it's a very tough time, and we need to talk about maybe how to overcome this tough time. And I very happy to invite you to join us in this conversation. Can you just a little bit introduce yourself, and we will continue our talking, okay?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dr. Dennis Reyna, and this is...
Hi, Alexi, and I'm Dr. Mishel Reina, and Dennis and I are the founders of a firm here based in the United States called Reina Trust Building. And we're just thrilled to be here with you and having the opportunity to share with you and your audience, some of the key highlights of over 25 years of research and practice that we've had an opportunity to cultivate and be a part of with organizations around the world that are centered specifically around trust. This has been a unique area of focus for us for over 25 years, and we feel very honored to have had the opportunity to work with many leaders all around the world. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be with you and to share with your audience.
Yes, this is both our purpose, our passion, and our life's work.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, as I say that we have some questions for you, and for me it's very important that we can share some ideas how to handle with this tough time. And the first question which I have, a question about trust for leaders. What is your opinion? What we need to do with trust in this tough time? Should we continue and develop trust, building trust, or we should use another practice? For example, we need to add some control, some other management things in order to manage our new environment. What you can recommend?
Sure. So, Alexi, well, first and foremost, business is conducted via relationships, and trust is the foundation of effective relationships. And during this challenging time, people have a real need for connection. They have a need to connect with one another. They have a need to talk about their issues and their concerns and their challenges. And it's so important that leaders really give them the space and the time to talk with one another, to talk with each other about those challenges.
I'd love to build upon what Dennis just said, Alexi, to your question, is that it would not be wise for leaders to turn away from trust right now. It would be an error in judgment that would have a dramatic negative impact on actually business performance as well as culture. Trust is at the cornerstone of what is needed now more than ever, because during this pandemic, when people are largely in isolation and have parameters in place that are moving them away from one another in terms of proximity and touch and connection, at a time where they actually need it more than ever. So what we know to be true, as Dennis just articulated, business is conducted through relationships, and the relationships that thrive and produce results are relationships that support people to connect with one another on a human level and to understand one another as people. That understanding and the need for that connection is stronger now than ever. So trust is essential to be a focal point in helping people return to focused attention on business and delivery and results through collaboration and teamwork and support of one another.
Oh, great. It's very important. I think it's a very important words. But what I can do as a leader, what I can do today, tomorrow, next week, in order to foster trust, in order to help my people to overcome this pandemic, this environment, these problems, what I can do tomorrow?
Well, you know, that's a great question, Alexei. And we actually wrote a book on this that is quite evergreen and very appropriate for these times. But I think it's important that leaders begin to first understand that there are 3 dimensions to trust. There's, first of all, trust of character. We do what we say we're going to do. We deliver as promised. We keep our word.
And during this period of time, what leaders can do to earn the trust of their character is to be sure they are letting their people know what they can count on them for.
Right.
Letting their people know that they are there for them. Listening to what the needs are of their people, what their people need from their leaders, what their people need from one another. So a leader needs to be really listening for and paying attention to how can they be of service to their people? How can they listen for the best interests of their people and help to gain a mutual understanding of how expectations are shifting during this time and what needs people have to remain focused, to remain aligned, to be in this space of collaboration with each other. That is a building block for the second dimension of trust, which we call trust of communication. And in the trust of communication, leaders can be focusing on ensuring that people have the most current information that they need, or they know where to find this information. And at a time when people are learning and discovering new ways of working together and are having to be flexible, there's going to be mistakes. So leaders need to make it safe for people to learn and grow from those mistakes.
And that safety is so important because people are feeling vulnerable. They're feeling fearful. And creating that safe environment, giving people an opportunity to talk and listen. Leaders need to listen now more than ever, as Mishel has mentioned, because they have needs. And particularly for many people, working at home is something new. And so they have to get adjusted, and they may need some tools or resources. Leaders helping their people get those is so important so they can be productive. But first and foremost, leaders need to listen.
Listening for fears, concerns, as well as hopes. You know, this is a time that is emotionally provocative. It's infused with feelings and emotions, and leaders need to make it safe for people to talk about what their feelings are. They may be feelings of hope and optimism and what we can create together, and there may be feelings of loss and grief and disappointment, and there needs to be room for both of those. And that actually cultivates the third dimension of trust we call trust of capability, where a leader can be helping their people learn new skills together and be involving their people's input and engaging them in decisions that will help move through this time of adjustment and acclimation together.
And all 3 of those are actually in our model here, the 3 dimensions of trust: trust of character, trust of communication, and trust of capability.
Great model. You know, for me, let's talk about remote teams, because for me it's very difficult to find some solutions how to handle with remote environment, because for some people it's a real stress, because we don't have any kind of experience before, and right now we all try to work remotely, right? And for remote team, it's very difficult to build trust. And what kind of solutions we can provide them to build trust remotely? Because for somebody, I think sometimes it's impossible.
Well, Alexei, it's definitely a challenge, particularly if a leader hasn't built much trust before this pandemic hit, and now they're faced with building it. But it's not impossible. And what again is important is that leaders need to take care of their people.
There are some very pragmatic things that we're seeing many of the clients that we're serving, Alexei, because many of the organizations that we're working with are faced with exactly what you're describing, that all of a sudden we are virtual. And in some situations, we may be all of a sudden virtual, but yet in the exact same town. So, we may be 5 or 10 minutes or an hour away from our office and accustomed to going there every day. And now all of a sudden we're virtually. And then in other situations, we're now virtually even more so than ever in other parts of the world. So it does require very clear, focused intention to help people connect and truly understand what do we need from each other. So as an example, some very specific steps that we're seeing many leaders take is before there are virtual meetings, when there are virtual meetings, such as Zoom or WebEx or any of the virtual tools, they are creating time. It might be 10 or 15 minutes, creating open time for people to really talk with each other. A virtual tea or virtual coffee, to talk about where they are at this time in their lives, to talk about how they are doing, what are ways that they are adjusting and acclimating, what are the things that are on their mind, how are they doing with their families, how are their children doing, how are they managing, navigating this space. People are, by and large, we are all at a time of working with uncertainty together. Everybody in every corner of the world are navigating and adjusting, and there are fears and concerns and vulnerability. So making time and space for people to just talk about how they're doing and what they're learning and what they're discovering. And then again, the focused attention on what do they need? What do they need for clarity of understanding? What do they need to know about the business and where we are going? What do they need to understand around what is expected of them and what they can expect from other people? What support do they need? So leaders engaging in open dialogue that's helping people arrive at mutual understanding, where they feel cared about, cared for, and are connecting with one another as people.
Yeah, that's the bottom line, is that leaders need to care for their people. And when they do care for their people, people will respond in kind and care for their business. And that's key.
Yeah, thank you. I think that if we can build trust today in our remote team, or if we can find some key elements which can help us to improve our trust, we will use it. We will use it later when we overcome all this pandemic, and we will better. We can build a better company. I think it's important.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, trust is really the pathway to returning to work in a new co-created way. Trust is what will help people journey through this together and lay a foundation that will support them to go into the new future. Trust is not something, even under the best of times, we are never done building trust. No. Even under the
work is never done.
Even under the best of times. During this period of chaos and complexity and uncertainty, it's calling upon leaders to be more intentional, to be more focused, to be more thoughtful, and to put the needs of their people first. This is not work that will be done when we're on the other side. Trust is the journey that will help us move through this together and will carry us into the future in ways that are healthy and whole and will support people to really optimize the best that can come from this and to achieve some gains and positive movement.
Yeah, I think what's important is because people are feeling vulnerable right now, and leaders, it's so important for leaders to give them the space to talk about their issues. People need to really understand what is in their control right now. What can they actually address and work on and focus on that which they can control and address, and not worry. It's easier said than done, but not worry about the things they can't control and can address.
Yeah, I think it's a good time for trust investments. I think if
Yes.
we can invest in trust right now, we will get some benefits later. No, but we will get it, I think.
Oh my gosh, there'll be an enormous return, for people in the health and quality of their lives, and the health and quality of the relationships, because right now people need that connection. They need to know we're all in this together, and that we continue to have that very high contribution to this greater whole, that we are a part of something. And the more we continue with positive intention to invest in our people and our relationships, that is what is going to set up the most positive future and the strongest business outcomes for leaders and every single person in the organization.
Yeah, that is key. That is absolutely key. When they put their heart and soul into it, when they really are authentic and genuine and really care for their people will care for their business.
Yeah, and my last question is about trust and happiness. What do you think? How we can connect trust and happiness? Do we have some connections between?
Well, you know,
this?
interesting enough, the neuroscience, Michelle and I have been working in this topic for over 25 years, actually going next year will be 30 years, if you can believe it. And the new neuroscience is actually proving right now that trust, and along with purpose, a higher purpose, actually gives way to happiness and joy. And so that's an interesting confirmation of what we've discovered over the years in working with our clients.
We've also, Alexi, just achieved a very significant pivotal point with one company in particular that we've been working with for 3 years in supporting them to move through a very comprehensive trust building journey. There have been over 1,000 people who have participated in this journey in a very focused, consecutive way. We just completed an organizational assessment of this process, and 87% of the 1,000 people who have been participating reported that it has significantly enhanced the happiness, joy, and satisfaction of their life at work and their life at home. And 83% reported that it has helped them in their delivery to the highest level of service to their customers, which has contributed to a point of pride in their work. So there is a very significant connection and linkage of trust to people doing their best work and feeling happy and fulfilled in their life and in the work that they are doing.
Yeah, from my point of view, in very tough time when we have some crisis, for example, we have the crisis of coronavirus and the pandemic, we can see that trust to institutes are growing down, and interpersonal trust will grow up. And for us, it's very important to understand how this interpersonal trust connects with our happiness. from my point of view, it's very important, because sometimes people don't know what to do, and we can help each other.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. You know, Alexi, from our work and our research, I would agree that it's very important, and I would take it one step further. It truly is non-negotiable when you get right down to it.
Yeah.
When you get right down to what our years of research and experience, the depth of your experience, other bodies of research from neuroscience, employee engagement, the health, happiness, bodies of research, the bottom line is leaders cannot achieve credibility without trust.
Right.
People cannot do their best work without trust.
trust.
When trust is present, everybody rises to the occasion and produces their best. When trust is absent, the lowest common denominator becomes the norm. Trust is not a nice thing to have. It's not optional.
Yes.
It is fundamentally essential and truly is a non-negotiable business and leadership imperative.
As a matter of fact, yes, I want to underscore that trust is not negotiable. Trust is foundational to sound business, no matter what business you are in, what planet you're on, what continent you're on. Trust is foundational. And I'd like to point out to our listening audience that if they would like more information about this, they could actually procure, this is our mothership book, Trust and Betrayal in the Workplace, Building Effective Relationships in Your Organization. And
Alexi, that book gives leaders very specific guidance and direction. It's chock full of tools and tips and stories and vignettes. It's available digitally. So it really is a go-to book for leaders now to help them understand what their people need and the steps they can take to help meet those needs.
Okay, great. Thank you for the great conversation. Actually, I know that's we can talk a lot about trust continuously. I think, yeah, it's a very important topic for me as well. And actually, I would like to say thank you very much for your thoughts, for your tips, for your books. It's very important books for today.
well, thank you, Alexi.
Thank you, Alexi, and thank you for your contribution to trust
Absolutely.
in the world, and for your commitment and the diligent steps you take to be in service to the leaders and the teams that you support. We are honored to travel this journey with you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It takes
Thank you.
courage and compassion, and you've got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.